That's a good question. Yeah.
Thank you. We'll share it.
Yeah.
2 L's.
It's on the next slide, I think. Right? Yep, it's right there.
Hey, hello. I'm Phillip. I was on egg team. Oh, wait.
Bro. Relax, I gotta get you all set up.
Sorry, John.
Alright, you got the mic on?
There are two of us, so.
Oh. Oh, you're doing
Yeet.
it too?
Yep.
Well, put your name in there, bro.
I think everybody knows me. It'll be fine.
Hey.
Who are you? Teams?
I don't know. I forgot my own name. That's a great question. I don't even know.
Who am I?
Alrighty, we good? Talk?
Hello? Yeet.
Alright, perfect. There we go.
All right, cool. So we are going to be talking about why you guys should participate in competitions. This is aimed mostly at the freshmen and kind of the underclassmen. For those of you that aren't really familiar with the competitions, but I've done a presentation similar to this in the past, and it's kind of a recurring one because we think here at our IT Sec the presentations, or not the presentations, but the competitions that we do, both here and nationally, and ones that are put on by other clubs, are super important to one, learning, and to the experience of doing InfoSec in college.
Okay, but this slide's more about us. I'm Phillip. I was on egg team. Let's go egg team. Egg team. When I'm one zombie boy on CCDC. I am head of memes and dad jokes.
Yeah, so I'm Ian. Ooh. Post-stream activities. So I'm Ian. Most of you guys know me. I'm the head of research. I'm the mentorship chief for this year. I really like policy, Internet of Things, and incident response. I really like being outside, and I'm super excited for movie night this week. So competitions are, like I mentioned, a really big part of the program here. We put on a handful of them every year. The new ones like Hackathon, or the classic ones like ISTS and IRSEC. And I think it's a really big part of the program, and it's something that kept me involved with RIT Sec when I was thinking about not being so involved in even the whole major itself. So it's definitely got a special place in my heart, and it always will. So there are a ton of different types of competitions. There's CTFs, Red vs. Blue, Incident Response, Hackathons, Hack Fortress. There's a whole bunch of different things that you could be doing during a competition, but it kind of boils down to these. So a CTF is a Capture the Flag, which we're going to put on in November, right? Q? November?
The CTF, yeah, that's November.
Yeah, there we go.
November
So
15th, 17th.
nailed it. So we're going to talk a lot more about that when it comes. Red vs. Blue is what we do for ISTS, where we've got the classic red team and the classic blue teams. The blue teams are also red teams, but more about that later. And then you've got the incident response things like you have with IRSEC. We've got the hackathons, which we just went through, and then you've got Hack Fortress, which is just a whole bundle of joy in itself. Phillip, you want to talk about that one a little bit?
Oh, Hack Fortress is great. So it's at ShmooCon every year, and there's a TFT team, a TF2 team, and a CTF team. And the CTF team completes challenges that get points about power-ups for the TF2 team. It's very fun.
Yeah, it's a good time. Watching it is almost as much fun as being in it. I've never actually been in it, but there's a handful of people that are from RIT, and the alumni are pretty good. So there are a bunch of examples of the different kind of competitions. These are all ones that we're involved in some forum here at RIT Sec. We've got Lockdown, we've got ISTS, which we host, the CTF, which we host, IRSEC, which we host, and the Hackathon, which we host. But then you've also got the national ones like CCDC and CPTC, which there are a handful of people in here that are involved in one or the other. Yeah. So there are a lot of different parts to these competitions, and the actual components are going to vary depending on which one you're participating in. But we're kind of going to go over it. So, Phillip, you want to talk about this one?
Okay, so the parts of the competition there is red team, which are the teams that at most competitions, they're kind of there to help blue team learn. For example, at IRSEC or ISTS or even UB, we're there kind of to slowly break your box, ramp up the difficulty, and make sure you're actually learning how to secure your system. Blue team is the other side of that. You're making sure your servers are set up, making sure you're doing injects, making sure your box is secure. Black team runs the whole competition. Well, black and white team, they set up the infrastructure, they make sure everything's running. Most of the time, they stay up till the day before, don't get any sleep, but it's great. And purple team, which you mostly see at ISTS, is blue team and red team, where blue teams will start trying to attack each other, and that's also can be pretty fun.
So competitions have a lot of different pieces. IRSEC is a really big one because we have a whole lot going on at the same time. So you've got your injects, which are going to be deliverables from somebody on the black team that are specific tasks that you've got to complete. So it could be something like setting up a new server or configuring something a different way. That way it actually works. You've got your uptime, which means that there's a scoring engine that's checking against your services to make sure they're actually running and serving whatever they're supposed to. And then you've got King of the Hill, which are a separate series of boxes that are run throughout the competition, which have several challenges to get in and control for a period of time. So Kyle Coretto made a really good post on Workplace about this last fall, and we stole a couple tips from him. So the first one is going in with a plan. The 5-minute plan is a super important concept that Philip's going to talk about in a minute, but it's something that is fundamental to actually succeeding in a competition because it lets you get in and get going without having to think, because sometimes you just need to actually be in and doing it without really thinking about it. Otherwise you're going to get caught up in everything else that's going on and it's going to start cascading. Another one is winning hearts and minds. Your team is going to hit some rocky places while you're trying to compete, and it's going to be awful for a little bit. But the important part is staying positive and staying motivated to actually keep pushing through it and get it done, because it might seem like it's the end of the road, but you don't know how the team next to you is doing. And it could be a drastic difference when it comes to even things like injects or other points that don't necessarily get reflected on the scoreboard immediately. You've also got to prepare like crazy. Going into a competition blind is one of the great ways to have a real bad time. I've done it before. My teammates did it before. It was a mess. We did not do great in that competition, but we kind of learn afterwards, and honestly just go in knowing what the infrastructure is going to look like, knowing who's going to do what, knowing about the actual things that you're going to be running and scored on during the competition, because if you don't know what a mail server is and you're trying to administer one, it's going to be a bad time. And the last one is don't shoot yourself in the foot. Keep calm and remember, you're the one that has the box. In the end of it, you're responsible for administering that thing or that set of things. And if you prepared and went in with a plan, then you should know the basics to it and have ways to get around most of what red team's going to throw at you, at least in the beginning. So it might seem like it's an impossible task, but you're going to figure out a way in.
And delegation. If you have a team, for example, that's coming UB, you want to delegate certain boxes to certain teammates, so not everyone's mixing and matching their knowledge. If someone's good at Windows or good at Linux, like you delegate which team member does which thing, and so that you know what to practice when going in, and you can specialize your knowledge on whatever specific role you have. And you can also delegate, like, because Linux is such a broad thing, you can delegate to mail Linux, web Linux, so on and so on. Let's go. And the 5-minute plan. So 5-minute plan is the very basic intro blue team thing. It's your first strategy in the 5 minutes. You don't follow it to a T. You don't type every single command line by line. The one I have basic up there, it is commands, but my normal one just be like change passwords, write firewall script, so on and so on. It's a strategy you do so that you're not going in, getting very confused and doing random stuff when you're in the box. You actually have a game plan going in. It adapts to what you're doing. So if you're doing mail, you might have a different script than if you're doing a web box. And there's a lot of text there, so each slide I'm going to go each command or each section of the plan up there and explain what it's like. Passwords. Red team loves it when you don't change your default password, so please do it. The advantage of changing this password is red team doesn't know your password. Red team doesn't know your password. Anyone who has the blue team packet doesn't know your password. And red team doesn't know your password. While I might not keep red team out, it makes it a lot harder to get in if red team doesn't know your password. Passwords continued. Password sheets are a good way of keeping track of passwords. Instead of saying, hey, what's the password to mail, and saying, oh, it's this password out loud, you're going to say it's number 8. And so anyone listening in doesn't know your password to your mail server. You can also add salts to these passwords. So if red team walks by, takes a quick picture of your password sheet, they don't have all your passwords again. A salt is mostly just a small text, like, for example, I've used like DNS at the end. So at the end of every password, you just write DNS. You don't write this down because that kind of defeats the purpose. And so that even if red team gets your password sheet, they don't have all your passwords. And when you have your password sheet, don't make it really, really, really complicated because that's really, really hard to type. Password like the one up there, I would hate if I would have to type that every time I wanted to log in. So when you make your password sheet, just do some very basic stuff. Firewall script. So I barely remember IP cables commands, so I have those written down. But your rules should be put into a script because red team loves flushing your rules, and they will flush them all the time during the competition. It's a lot easier just to run a simple bash script than to retype every single firewall command. At the end of the firewall script up there, you have the sleep and the drop commands. That's so if you're on a cloud box that you don't have direct access to, and you accidentally block 22 or SSH, you don't get locked out of your box. I've done that quite a few times. It really sucks. So you write those there, and you hit enter a few times, and if you have connection, it'll let you do some things. Yeah, Chris?
Aren't all the E's, is that like each second you want?
Nah, that's just not necessary. No, it's just sleep spelled right, and sleep.
It's actually 10 seconds. Per
Yeah, 10 seconds in E. Yeah?
Does that mean you're supposed to take a nap during that period?
Yes. Do a few naps. It's
Especially
really
if
good
you
during the
want to.
competition. You want to get your rest. But besides that, yeah, you want to make sure you have those drop rules so that when you do run the script, you don't get locked out. And then when it does work eventually, you remove those obviously so that your rules do apply. And this is what you do after you have your script written. You want to chmod it to make it executable, and then bash the script. And then you can check your rules with the simple ibtables command. And then you want to move it to a different directory. Red team will maybe want to find your script, and they will definitely delete that script if they do find it, which then you don't have a script to easily run anymore. So I like hiding my script so red team can't find it.
Cool. So there's a lot of different benefits that go into competing. Some of them are kind of fun. It's a trial by fire. The whole thing, pretty much everything's on fire the whole time, and you're jumping around from task to task to try and figure out what you're actually supposed to be doing and what you kind of thought about you were going to be doing when you were going into it. And it's a big shift because you're not going to get that experience in most of the classes here, and you're not going to have that same kind of flight or fight response that's going on. It's a great way to reinforce any kind of learning that you've done either for the competition or in the classroom because you're actively putting things into practice in an environment that's not strictly what you would be doing normally. So it's a great way to get a little bit of an alternative taste to what you're used to doing. It's also a great way to network. At all of our competitions, we have sponsors that come hang out and are there to actually come and see the competition because they're there on their days off, they're there on their weekends to come see what we're doing, what our students are doing, and that whole thing. So they're there because they're interested in it. They're not there most of the time because they have to be. So it's a great thing, and we really love it when they come in. It's also a great way to talk to them or talk to your fellow competitors. I made friends at other schools and then seen them at conferences and gone, hey, I don't remember meeting you, but I remember where we met, and it was a great time, and it's a great way to talk to. That actually happened at DEF CON this summer. It was really fun.
Yeah. Also, another thing, you'll see when sponsors do come to these competitions, don't be afraid to talk to them. I've talked to quite a few sponsors at like ISTS, for example. Go to the career fair like 2 weeks later and see them at these booths interviewing students. And you can say, hey, I saw you at ISTS, we talked about this, and it helps you get like an interview or even a co-op.
Yeah.
It's really useful.
So alongside that, it's a great resume builder. If you're able to talk about your experience at a competition, companies love that because it, one, shows that you're actually putting your skills to use. 2, you're involved, and 3, that you might actually know something and you've got the skills to back up what you are on paper. Lastly, it teaches teamwork because that's one of the things that I hear professors harping on all the time is that we need more teamwork at RIT. And going through something like a competition means you're stuck with your team for a bunch of hours in the lab working on something either for 1 day or 2, and it's a great experience. Even longer than that if you're on CCDC or CPTC or something like that.
And it's fun. I love competitions. I've tried to do as many competitions as Red Team, Blue Team over the past year I've been here at RIT. And every one of them I've had really fun. My team has been great. Egg Team is really fun. But yeah, every competition, I recommend going to every single one you possibly can. That's my spiel.
Yeah, so alongside this, there are a couple resources that are good to have when you're going into a competition. The blue team field manual is a big one because it's got a lot of handy tips and tricks for when you're blue teaming. The red team one, not so useful when you're blue teaming, but it still shows you a couple tricks that red team might have up your sleeves so that you could prepare for them in the future. And then GitHub. Almost all of the RIT red team stuff is out on GitHub repos in a lot of places. There's a chunk of it. And a lot of the people that red team for competitions publish some of their stuff. So it's a great way to go out and look and see, oh, these are the kind of things that they know. These are the kind of things that they do. And if you know that stuff going into a competition, you're going to be a whole lot better off than if you're going in blind. So yeah, do you guys have any questions about competitions? Cool. Thank you. Oh.
What happens if you feel like you don't know enough? What should you do?
You can either, well, some competitions, red team will actually come around. You can ask them. You can ask after the competition, red team members. You can ask mostly anyone in the club, really. Like, if you like were confused about something during the competition and you're in the car ride home with like someone who you think is really knowledgeable, then ask them like, hey, what was this? Why did this happen? And what should I do next time? And they'll probably gladly answer you.
Yeah. And if it's something like you don't think you know enough to even compete in a competition, then I think most everybody in this room has been there if they've competed in a competition. I remember my first competition was ISTS my sophomore year. I was with... It was an absolute shit show all day long. We had boxes burned left and right. We were locked out of boxes. We had stuff crashing. We had things that were down. One of our boxes got turned into Floppy Bird at one point. It was a mess. But we learned a hell of a lot going through it. And the next competition we did was IRSEC that same year, and we got third place. So, yeah. So going through it and actually being able to compete and learn from the experience made us all a whole lot better. So even if you're going in blind, UB is a great competition for that. IRSEC is a great competition for that. ISTS is maybe not a great competition for it,
Still do it.
but you should still absolutely do it because it's a fantastic time to know nothing and absolutely love every second of it. That was my relationship with it, and now look at me, I'm up here. So, yeah, Simon?
What should you do if you don't like talking to people and you can't find the team?
We have lots of forums come competition time for signups, so we definitely always put together at least one RIT-SEC team for anything. Shannon?
So if I've never competed before and I want to practice with my team, what's a way that I can set up and who can I reach out to help practice
You got one, Phillip?
So a good way to set up is making like well, first is get a group chat going, obviously.
Yep.
Like in workplace chat, easiest thing. Another good website to do is Windomeet, which is kind of like a scheduling website. Everyone puts in when they're open, and you can kind of decide on a time based on that, where either everyone's open or the good majority of people are available. And then you can start getting practices. If you want red team, someone to red team you, you probably ask either someone who is on red team or is at least pretty knowledgeable, a CPCC team or something like that.
Yeah. If you ask around, somebody in RIT-SEC will know where to point you to find answers to that stuff. I'm completely drawing a blank right now on better places or better people to talk to specifically.
Keyboard.
Yeah, eBoard's a pretty good one. I couldn't say that because me, but
It's almost like I had the blue team set up a window meet. I set up one of them for the blue teams to get their stuff together for you.
oh wow, look at that. So yeah, eBoard's here to help you. Come ask us any kind of questions you have, and yeah, we don't bite people's heads off usually.
Everyone wants
Usually.
to help.
Yeah, it's security through community. There's a reason our shirts say it, and it's a big part of why I love our club so much.
Also, I'm not e-board, but don't be afraid to talk to me either. I'm really nice.
Phillip's fantastic.
Sure.
All right, any last questions? Joy?
Do you suggest running with the same team over and over again, or just meeting with new people?
So there are pros and cons to both. If you're running with the same team over and over again, then you're going to get a great experience with those people. You're going to get to know each other, and you're going to get to know how things work out with your team. The con to that is you're not going to be bringing anybody new into the fold. You're not going to learn other opinions that people might have. And I wouldn't say your learning is kind of limited that way, but it's maybe a little bit hampered. So opening it up is always good when you can. Swapping in and out. Maybe split your team in half and try and get a bunch of people that you think would be good to fill in those extra seats. Yeah. Anything else? Awesome. Thank you, guys.
Yeah.